us live on the Sherry Lord Talk Show podcast. Start your day off with a higher vibrational podcast with weekly guests covering spirituality, healthy foods, and so much more. Go to sherrylord.com for more info. Hey, we're so excited. Thank you everyone for joining us. We're really glad you are here because we have a very special guest. Her name is Melissa Marcum. She is a professional astrologer, and she is going to go into many in-depth highlights of different areas that we're going to talk about. Her topic is how astrology can help you find your life purpose. And what I like to do is just introduce her. Melissa is a professional astrologer. Melissa was first drawn to astrology during her childhood in Coral Springs, Florida, near where I live. As early as age 9, she began studying birth dates for anyone willing to share. Melissa has studied astrology with Carol Cummings, as well as other well-known astrologers. Her approach is to combine spiritual understanding with practical action. She also views astrology as a universal language through which the unique elements that make each of us who are can be discussed, understood, and developed. Melissa is an avid, ongoing student, always pursuing new interpretations to describe planetary influences. And we just want to say welcome. Hello, Melissa. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Gosh, the sky is talking right now, and it's saying a lot.
Yeah, and we just love the topic, how astrology can help you find your life purpose. I think this people are seeking right now, and we feel that that's really important, and that we're really excited to have you explain a little bit about that, or more in depth, and other things we were talking about behind the scenes about the new moon, the full moon. It's so exciting time that we live in. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself first, and then we'll go right into the topic.
Yeah, so I, like many of your listeners, was seeking something new, right? I got tired of almost living in the same life.
Yeah.
I was doing the same type of job. I have been divorced since 2007, so I was attracting the same type of men, the same type of relationships. The same type of friends. And I was about 2018, 19, I was on my spiritual path. I was like,
wow,
gosh, this life is just the same. It's not getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
It's not horrible, but I knew that there was something more, and I feel like all of us that are on our spiritual path, we know that there's something more.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was this internal student that started to study different things. I studied the Akashic records. I studied Reiki. I studied a little bit tarot. I studied, anything that I could find on the internet that seemed interesting. Okay. So I went to this retreat, didn't know anybody, went to this retreat out in Arizona. And I talked to the organizer and I said, listen, I've always been kind of interested in astrology since I was the kind of kid that, would do the project in the box with the styrofoam planets. I'm probably myself. And would look at the stars and say, wow, there's so much more than what we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she introduced me to this astrologer. And turns out she had a program.
Oh, wow.
And it opened my life to a whole different, to the way I looked at everything.
Wow.
And I started studying astrology, but I didn't study it the traditional way as far as just understanding the archetypes of, sun, moon, ascendant.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What she focused on is something called the lunar nodes.
Okay.
And they are elliptical points in the sky. So you come in reincarnation, or if you don't believe in reincarnation, it could be, your childlike self, which when you're born, you come in, and that is considered the south node. So the south node feels kind of comfortable in the fact that you know what you know, right? But there's always something missing. And the purpose and goal is to try to get to the North Node, which is your destiny. So
Oh,
let me give you an example what that means. So I am a South Node in Libra. So relationships and partnership is central in my life. I was the type of person that always needed to be in a relationship, that always needed to talk out different problems with people. You know, I would say abnormally so, where I make a decision on my own. I was afraid to speak up. I was afraid to step into my power. If you would have told me 5 years ago, oh, you're going to be on a podcast with a woman named Sherry Lord and talk about your spiritual journey and path. And oh, by the way, you're an astrologer. I would have said, you're crazy. No, I am the supporting cast member. I'm going to say to you, Sherry, you do that. I will help you do that.
I get that.
So the opposite of Libra is Aries.
Ooh.
Aries is all about self. It's all about stepping into your power. It's about you leading the charge. So I have been working on that. I got certified in astrology about 3 years ago. And, you know, this is a lifetime practice for me, is to step into my power. And it doesn't matter that I'm an astrologer. I'm still a human living on this third dimensional reality with lessons and all of that, what that entails. So that's a little bit of how I read a chart. I really want to know the essence of somebody
Okay.
and what their life path is. And that's what astrology does, is you can use it as a tool to help you. And it changes everything, understanding the nodes.
Okay.
Another what I also look at is Chiron. Chiron being the wounded healer. There's a whole mythological story about Chiron. And those are the wounds that we bring in. So if you understand your life path and your wounds,
Oh, wow.
I want to say that the rest of the chart is important, but it just goes around that, because your sun sign is what you show the world. Your moon sign is how you feel internally.
Okay.
But I don't want to dismiss that. What I want to do is to really get to the soul part of who you are and what you're here to accomplish, because that's where the work begins.
Absolutely. I'm just feeling the love as you're speaking, and so much truth.
Yeah, it's very hard for people to get to their North Node. It's not an easy process. Every time you think you have it, something can happen, because it's really about being in the highest level of consciousness that you can be. And that's where you're going to feel the best. And it doesn't matter if you're a corporate executive making, you know, a couple $100,000 a year. If you're not living in your North Node, you always feel like you're missing something. There's always something. It's not about, for women out there, it's not about the husband, their children, their career, their friends. It's that deepest part of our soul that we know that we want to accomplish, whatever that is. And it's for us being the soul. This is just merely a vessel that we're in, the body. So that's what I try to get to the heart of the matter when I read a chart, is understanding people's soul purpose and what they, I have
that's very
successful men and women that are like, wow, what is my, how do I get to my path? And the first thing they have to do is be very self-actualized, is to really know who they are. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, all of it, and accept who they are. So it's a lot more than, let's just say, your sun sign. So that was a pretty long answer to your question. I kind of weaved in and out of my story. But so that's my path.
We're going in and out a little bit here.
Yeah, I know.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you wanted to kind of touch on there, Sherry?
Yeah, I think it's important to know, to empower yourself and to have a path, and it gives you your passion, and I think it's very, very important to have people who can guide us there and that we guide people there. I think it's to give them some illumination or light, on their path, I think is huge. But yeah, it is about, being true to yourself, empowering yourself, and, your weakness can also be your strength. You just correct them,
Well, I would venture to say we need that to move into a higher state of consciousness.
Yes.
And every human out there has a purpose.
Yes.
And it's not about somebody else's purpose or path. It's about that higher self, when you're in your dreams or when you're in that state of being alone is what really drives me and moves me.
Yes.
And that's what I love about astrology is I could look at somebody's chart and have even a person that I might initially not really connect with, but I can look at their chart and say, wow,
okay,
I feel the love for them because I know how hard what they have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people get confused about astrology because they look at certain things and they're almost afraid of it. But really, it comes down to you're controlling everything.
Yeah.
Because there's always free will.
Yes.
This is just merely a guide on the past. And the soul always wants to experience everything, good, bad, indifferent, because in cosmic law, there is no judgment. There is no good or bad. It just is.
Exactly.
And that took me a long time to understand that because, it's, we're not taught that way. We're taught,
we're not taught
wrong, good and bad, heroes and enemies. So to really wrap your head around that and live in the reality that we do is quite challenging. And I think that's why the soul always comes back here. Because it's like Disneyland for the soul. It's challenging, right? It's like, wow, if I could release all these attachments and do the work in this hologram type of reality, wow, I've accomplished a lot. So
it's doing the work, and people have to be willing to do their own work. I mean, we can, highlight what's happening, but then you don't want it to keep repeating, so it's important to do your own work, go inward for that. But the guidance is so huge. There's so many tools, like you said, some people do it this way, some people do it through astrology, everybody has a different way, but it's still a guide. And it's the guide for people to empower themselves, to give them the tools to look at, where they can and how to. I think this is great.
I find too, the chart gives you many chances to do the work and you don't even realize it. For example, the generational transits. And what I mean by that is the outer planets. You have Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. That it's, they stay in a house. Saturn stays in a house for 2.5 years. So what Saturn does is it's a teaching planet. It makes things very serious. So I'll give you for an example. If Saturn moves into your 7th house of partnership, you're with somebody. And if it's not a serious relationship, Saturn it could break up, because Saturn's all about, doing the work and it to be serious.
Mhm.
to help you. You know, Uranus, for example, stays in a house 7 years. So it's all about the awakener,
Ah,
in somebody's chart. For example, if Uranus is in your 10th house of career, you could pretty much not be doing what you're doing when you started, or your job's going to change in a different direction. It awakens you, you know, and people sometimes when they hear that, they get a little bit nervous. They're like, oh my gosh, you know, but then they have to, again, going back to what I said, be self-actualized. Is
right.
this really providing you joy?
Mhm.
It's that old magic wand. You know, I've been in sales for a long time. If I had a magic wand, you know, and I can, you know, and I can wave this, what would it be? You know, and I say to people, if you had a couple of $1 million in the bank, would you be doing what you're doing? Of course not. Okay. Because that old adage, you do something you love, the money will come. And that is true. I'm telling you that is true. If you do something you love, the money will come, because people can feel energy. Even if they don't really know what they're feeling, they can tell when somebody's authentic, or somebody's trying to help them,
Yep.
or somebody's trying to take their money, or whatever the case may be. So I find another thing, I want to go back to Saturn, because I think Saturn's such an important planet. So every about 28 to 30 years, everybody has their Saturn return. So we have our first Saturn return. And the distinction is because the outer planets are in retrograde about 50% of the time. So it can change. So from 28 to about 30, you have your first Saturn return. So typically people get married, they might have a child, they might do a major thing in their life that sets the pace for the next 29 years. Then the second time is about 58 to 60. So to any of our listeners, I mean, if you think back, some significant things could happen in that time period.
Mhm.
And I often make the distinction, this is my own personal opinion, is that if you're not in your North Node energy, by the time your second Saturn return comes, I feel that you're in your 60s and 70s, you're going to be a very kind of disgruntled human that feels that you don't have control of things. They are the people, the condo commandos that have to have that clipboard, or you could just see them walking around the grocery store, right? Just kind of living and existing, but not really feeling a sense of passion or purpose. So it goes back to the chart. The chart gives you many opportunities to make the choices that are going to benefit you, so you can flow with the energy, instead of, most people work against the energy.
Okay.
And they're on this cogwheel of doing the same thing and expecting different results.
Okay.
So I think that's how this all works. At least this is how it's all worked for me and my clients and people that I've really coached and counseled in it.
Wow, this is huge. And what has been some of the experiences that some of your clients have had? And we have a lot of people watching us. I want to say, give a heads up to everybody that's here and listening to this wonderful Melissa Marcum. She's so beautiful, and love her insights. I really love her insights. And
Absolutely.
yes,
Thank
you know,
you.
because there's Saturn, there's Venus. I mean, what does Venus have to do with anything? I always see it popping up.
So Venus is two things. It's how we love, and our money.
Okay.
So now we're in Venus retrograde until
Oh.
September. It went in July, and now we're there until about, I think, the beginning of September. So when a planet's in retrograde, you want to kind of revisit your finances. You don't want to like necessarily do major changes. I wouldn't, because Venus is also could be appearance. So I wouldn't necessarily during a retrograde get that different haircut that you're thinking about. Maybe wait until the retrograde's over. Also, if you're in kind of a relationship that you're on the fence, I would probably break up with that person after the retrograde's over, kind of revisit it. It could be kind of difficult to start a new relationship during a Venus retrograde. Those are the kind of things that it's really about revisiting, reviewing, and thinking about during a retrograde. The same with like Mercury retrograde. You don't want to start anything, sign contracts. You know, sometimes life gets in the way and it's unavoidable.
Okay.
You know, and it really takes what I do to my clients is I look at other transits in their chart, you know.
Okay.
But for example, and this is for people who live in the Jacksonville, St. Augustine area, I believe it was last year, ViStar Credit Union started their program, their new online banking program during Mercury retrograde.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
needless to say, the thing was down for about 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So again, you don't want to launch anything during that time, during a retrograde. Or back to Venus retrograde, you don't want to get married during a retrograde, you know, because things could be unclear and they're not flowing.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, just a little some tidbits to help people.
Yeah, in their life, because they need to connect. How does astrology affect me in my life? And those are good things to know. Serious.
Yeah, I find that, you know, again, going back to what I said, you have to work with the energy instead of against the energy. But you don't know what you don't know, because I would say astrology has always been demonized as kind of a pseudoscience, you know, and I think it got that reputation because during the 40s, there was in a British newspaper, they decided to put just the sun signs in the newspaper.
Okay.
So every day, you know, on Sundays or daily, they would have a sun sign review, which is only a very small snippet of the whole chart. It's not everything. And that's why I think most of us only know our sun sign and we relate to our sun sign.
Okay.
But there's so much more to you. You can read some of it and say, oh, yeah, this kind of pertains to me. Yes, I operate in this, but that's not what I'm feeling, or that's not that soul stuff. That's not, you know, that's why, I mean,
yeah.
Before when we were prepping for the show, you said you're an Aquarius, right? That's your sun sign?
I don't know if it's my sun sign, but I just know I don't have a date of birth on my my birth certificate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, there was none at that time. They didn't record them. So, but not where the hospital I was at, you know.
Wow.
It was early morning. That's all I know.
Yeah, no. But you would find that you know, going back to the Aquarian thing, there's maybe a lot of Aquarians that are not like you, you know, that operate in a different realm than you do.
Yes.
So that's where I think the confusion is not all sun signs are alike because there's so much more to the chart. They have different node placements, different Chiron. The planetary alignment is completely different. Even twins that are born a couple of minutes apart have different charts. So because the souls are all different, there's only one soul. It's like your DNA.
Why does Mercury get such a bad rap? I mean, Mercury does bring change, but it's not necessarily bad.
I think the bad rap it gets during Mercury retrograde because Mercury represents communication and mind.
And it does.
Third house. So that's where people get really caught up in things and they feel like, I'll tell you during a Mercury retrograde, leave yourself plenty of time to do things, to travel, to, go over documents, review documents that you have, whether they're personal, professional. You have to give yourself a lot of time. So I think, people start freaking out because it's like everything, electronics seem to go down, things seem to happen. And it's just, it can be very chaotic.
Yes.
I personally prepare for it. I'm like, I set the intention that, okay, I'm going to ride this retrograde. And I give myself plenty of time to do things. I try not to sign documents, professional documents during that day. But again, sometimes, it lasts 3 weeks. So you can't not do it.
Yeah.
You have to. I don't start things during Mercury retrograde, new projects, things that are already in progress that, you can work within that. It's again, working within the energy. Also, you might have some really great transits in your personal chart.
Yeah.
So that can kind of, I don't want to say cancel out, but it can, let's look at your chart overall.
Yeah. So it depends. Yeah.
It depends. Yeah.
Wow. And we were talking about what I felt was really interesting was the new moon and the full moon. And, can you elaborate a little bit more the differences of the two and what people can do during that time and explain about today? Today's a very special day. Melissa.
Yeah. So we have a full moon in Aquarius.
Yes.
So Aquarian energy is all about what makes you unique, what makes you a little bit weird and different.
Yes.
It's about embracing that inside you. It's about being that, starting something and being that. Aquarian energy is, okay, I'm going to lead this and do this because I feel compelled to do this. So I would say, during a full moon, it's really about releasing that it's endings, So what I would tell people is, if something's not making you embrace your uniqueness of who you are, let that go. Let that go. Tonight is a very good night to manifest.
Ooh.
Manifest things. I manifest things all the time. Because I think that you're working with this energy. So tonight I would say, well, what makes me unique? What is it that I want to, how do I look at, for example, my business? What's unique about it? How can I, make it call to my action? Like, how can I make it different? And obviously I'm doing this show today. So, so it's really about embracing that Aquarian energy. And something that's outside of that, letting it go.
Yeah.
Wouldn't start a business in a full moon. That's something more of a new moon. New moon is new beginnings. We have a new moon coming September 14th in Virgo.
Ooh.
Like I was saying, when we were talking earlier, be a really good time to start a diet or exercise program during this new moon. You have some personal goals. You want to lose weight.
Yeah.
You want to feel healthier, feel more alive, eat better. Perfect time to do it is setting it, writing your plan out. Or checking out different type of diets or eating plans that work for you. If intermittent fasting works, if however you want to do it, great time during a new moon. New moons are beginnings. This is my beginning to do something that I feel really compelled to do. And Virgo is a very healing sign. It's it's the sixth house. It's health and healing. It's service work. Another thing is, if you wanted to volunteer, I always wanted to volunteer. If you say to yourself, I always wanted to volunteer at a shelter to help animals, or, to help the elderly, or do something, service related. great time to do it.
Just like the action and inspiring and just do it, stepping
Exactly.
into it, which I feel is really a good thing. And it's good to know, it gives people that boost, during that energy. I think that would be to step into something new or unknown, just by doing it. I think it's great. But to follow their passion is important, which I think is as well. But we talked about, what does Jupiter have to do with anything?
So Jupiter is the luckiest planet in the zodiac.
Okay.
It typically stays in a house 1 year. So for example, I'll give you some for examples. Let's say you have Jupiter transiting your 5th house.
Okay.
Really good time for love. Really good time to get pregnant, because 5th house is house of children. If it's in your 7th house, really good time to embrace partnership, whether it's professional or personal. If it's in your 10th house, you could have a really lucky year as far as making money.
Okay.
It's also about expansion. Think of Jupiter like Santa Claus.
Okay.
It's fun.
In my head a few times, and then other planets have it. I really wanted to wrap my head around Jupiter. So you're really explaining a lot.
Yeah, Jupiter is it, it rules Sagittarius, so it's everything. It's big. If you notice, a lot of people that could have Sun in Sagittarius, they could be very positive. A lot of them are larger than life type of people. So it's one of those planets that I definitely look at. I look at all of them, but I like Jupiter. I like and it can expand something.
Okay. That explains something.
So
Yeah.
if it's conjuncting, let's say Saturn, it can expand where that placement is. So it's not, I don't want to say it's always easy, because if it's in a conjunction with another in a hard aspect with something, it can expand whatever that is. So it just depends. But typically in your chart, I look at it and I say, hey, if you have Jupiter in the 4th house, it could be a really good time for you to buy a house.
Oh, wow.
It could be a really good time to meet somebody. It could be a really good time to change careers. It could be a really good time to, in the 8th house, it could be you're embracing transformation.
Okay.
It could expand your transformation of what you're trying to do.
That makes sense.
It kind of works. Basically how it works is the chart tells your story. You have your birth chart, with your nodes and Chiron and everything lined. That's your lifetime of work. Then every year you have a solar return chart. Your solar return chart is all those cast of characters for that year. So I typically read somebody's birth chart once.
Okay.
And then every year they come back for a reading and I do a solar return chart, or they could be part of my membership program and I can do quarterly readings because I can look at their business. I do business charts. I do, a multitude of different things. It's not just one size fits all. I get really into customizing.
Fits all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Customizing it to their personal needs.
I really like that. It's not like just general. It's to that person, and I really like that.
Yeah, because that's the way it should be. It has to be. I make my readings about them, about whoever I'm reading. I always say this in all my readings. I'm just confirming what you already know about yourself. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm doing. I'm not an oracle. I can't tell you who's, if you're going to win the lottery. I can't tell, because generally when people want to know stuff like that, they're not going down deep. You know, I mean, somebody who wins the lottery this lifetime, it's coming from maybe a lot of good service and things that they did last lifetime.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, that's why we have premonitions. That's why we have dreams. That's why we have like, wow, I know you, or this feels really familiar, you know, and we might have never been there, you know. I mean, I've always had this thing with Ireland and the Druids and all of that energy. And I'm going to Stonehenge in December, which I'm really excited about. So it's like all of that calls to me. But then there's a part that calls to me with, you know, the pyramids, and
Yeah.
because I mean, it's not just one lifetime, it's many lifetimes, many lifetimes. So I think that's just my opinion. Everybody has their own opinion on things like that, but that's just what I feel that works for me personally. Um, so I think that's where all of that is coming from.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. What if, you know, like I said earlier, how does people, do you have to have the date and time of your birth
You
for,
do,
so what
because
is
the
the
planets can
change of-
shift in
yeah,
different houses every, you know, every couple of minutes. So it's like depending on where the chart is. So to get the accurate,
mhm,
and I know sometimes it's hard. People are like, I don't have it on my birth certificate. You can get the long form if you live in the United States. There's always the long form. You could go through Vital Statistics and get the long form. Other countries, I know that they have different ways of setting things up. A lot of times, I tell people this: ask your higher self.
yep. And then
Ask
give
your
it,
higher self to give
absolutely.
you that time,
Yep.
you know, and we can work with that time. You
Yep.
know, I definitely want them to feel very secure in that. The last thing I want to do is take anybody's money or give them something that they don't feel that they relate to. So I'm very, um, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't like to do charts without birth times.
But that's okay. That's just being honest and authentic about it, you know, which I think is a good thing for people, you know.
Yeah, that makes, you know, I think I want to give them something that's going to help them and something that's going to make them feel,
Hmm.
because the reading is not about me, it's about them. So, I mean, even when I do, you know, shows like fairs, mystic fairs or something, I do 20 minutes for $20, and they're like, well, I'm not exactly sure. And I'm like, listen, I will honor the $20. I want you to go and do some research and find the birth time,
Yep.
because I don't even want to take $20 from you.
But
So
it's really good that, see, I never knew there was a long form.
uh-huh.
You know, I didn't know you can get a long form. I never heard of
Yeah,
that.
you have to ask for it. Some states automatically include the birth time on it. I was born in New York, so they didn't. I had to write vital statistics, ask for the long form. I have to hand it to my mom. She was really close. She said 2 o'clock, and it was 2:25.
Oh,
And
wow.
it didn't change my chart much because of where my planets were, my planetary
Right.
alignment. It didn't change it. Um, but she was close. She was a lot closer than I was. And back then they put women, I think, to sleep. I was born in 69, so it was like, wow, that was pretty good. So yeah, but that's what I tell people. And then, like I said, from other countries, it's a little bit more difficult. But if there was an extenuating circumstance or something, you know, again, go into that spiritual higher
Yeah.
self,
And just
and
get
then
it.
just, yeah, ask for that
Absolutely.
number.
Oh
So,
my gosh. Yeah,
yeah.
this is amazing. Is there, how does it affect the global? There's been so much chaos going on in the world. And is that part of the planets or bringing the change?
Yeah, so what's going on is about every 2,500 years, and astrologers all have their different perspectives about this. The Earth points to a different constellation, and with that comes change.
Right.
Right? So we entered, and again, you're going to find different things when you go and Google this on the internet as far as the age of Aquarius. Some say it started 2007 to 8. Others say we're not there yet. I believe we're there. And it takes about approximately 84 years to fully get into the age where you're in it. This is just my opinion. Again, you're going to hear there is no right and wrong. It's just whatever people feel. So I think that's what's going on. I think we're going into the fourth industrial revolution. We're going into air energy, which means that it's all about electronic-based businesses as far as remote-based businesses. It's not about earth anymore. It's all air. So you see people, everything is, hey, there's an app for that. I can Google this. Hey, we can have a Zoom call. It's changing. And I think for the next generations, that's why millennials, Gen Z they're very much more internet savvy.
Yep.
They're very good with their cell phones. You have the iPad kids, I think it's after Gen Z, because they're getting ready for this next age. And this next age is not what the baby boomers or even Gen X is used to, right? I mean, so it's scary to people.
Yeah.
So we're seeing a lot of changes in the world because of this. And you're going to continue to see more changes. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. That's not to say that it's not to scare people. It's to validate what's going on. We are at the end of Pisces. Pisces started with Christ consciousness, Christ being the avatar to lift up the vibration of the planet. We are going into religious fanaticism because that's the opposite of Christ consciousness is religious fanaticism. So, oh my gosh, that's why I think, and not to get political because I am not political. I am not a political person. But that's why you see things being orchestrated by more of Sharia law, more of biblical law. And I think that that's where all of this is coming. But the great thing is that in Aquarian energy, everything is balanced and equal. And if we look at the north node of the birth, because everything has a chart, if we look at the north node in the United States of America, the north node is in Leo. So it's really about you as the individual thinking with your heart, and not keeping up with the Joneses. The opposite of South Node for the age of Aquarius, or for the United States of America chart is Aquarius. We the people.
Yes.
Keeping up with the Joneses. The opposite of that is Leo. It's going from the mind to the heart.
Yes.
So I think if people work in what's coming from a loving space, being accepting of themselves and everybody around them, they're going to live a more fulfilled life, a life that's not filled with judgment or everybody thinking the same or everybody being the same, because everybody's not the same. We're all individuals living in this world of just experience. And I think if we all kind of sit in that, you're gonna be a happier person. You know, you're not, because what it comes down to, in my opinion, is the hero is inside you.
Ah.
So that's how I view it. You know, and that is what helped me to get to and as I continue my personal journey, is to get to a higher state of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah, so this new change that's coming in for the United States, the world, is really going to bring even more change for the balance.
It is, because again, it's another industry. It's all air energy. It's not what we're used to. We're going to see a lot of artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
It's AI. I mean, we're going to see self-driving cars. We're going to see it's going to be a lot more technology. So the next generation of people are going to have to, this is why that they're into spirituality, astrology, Reiki, all of that, because they're going to truly have to have that connection with their soul.
Okay.
You know, and not be, it's the balance, right? I mean, I would say AI is amazing for how to manage copious amounts of data.
Yeah.
It can far exceed what a human can do.
Yeah.
So the goal is not to be smart, because the AI is already going to take that over. The goal is to be emotionally intelligent.
Yes.
How do I be emotionally intelligent? How do I be a kinder person? How do I live in that 5D state of consciousness where I'm loving? I'm not going down these constant rabbit holes of fighting and, my religion is better than your religion. My political candidate is better than your political candidate. I'm better, this better, that better. It's about thinking with our hearts and saying there's a place for everybody. There is a place for everybody. But we have to believe this first inside and really connect to who we are. So
that's really interesting. This was really in depth. I really loved the conversation because, you look around, it wasn't my generation.
mm-hmm.
And I had to Google to do videos to learn how to do things, to get in with technology a little bit more. I don't have to be in depth of it.
Right.
I think AI has its purpose, but I still love the idea of being my own creative outside the box, to keep that intact and not lose that. I think there's a balance with it all.
I think so too. There's always, and people ask me all the time, they're like, are we going to be like, is it going to be like Terminator, where it seems to me that everything always ends up in the middle.
Yeah.
There's always, yes, things are going to change. Yes, AI is going to be heavily involved. Yes, all of these things are going to happen. But the experiences are always in the middle of what you think that they're going to be, and it's, again, you can live on any planet, be in any existence if you have connection to your soul, because you know the purpose of why you're there in the first place. And it's not about fear. Love is the strongest emotion that we have, and the strongest thing that makes everything better. And trust me, I have, what I'm going to tell you, I have 4 planets in Aries, so I have not mastered this. But I was just telling my friend last night, if somebody is doing the most treacherous things to you and telling you off and just calling you everything, every name in the book, if you look at them and say, yes, but I love you, you're going to disarm them, and they're not even going to know it. And 9 times out of 10, they're just going to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that through, the Buddhist monks doing that. It's releasing that ego attachment.
Yeah.
And again, how this all relates to the chart is, I could see this in somebody's chart. For example, if a person has Taurus, a heavy Taurus placement on the South Node, they have a lot of planets in Taurus, they're very stuck. They know what they got. You know, even a person with Chiron and Taurus, they're kind of stuck. It's almost like they're not completely happy at all, but they're so afraid what's going to be behind that door. Oh my gosh, I know what I got.
Yeah.
What am I going to get? So that's a big lesson for a lot of Taurus in somebody's chart. You know, it's doing things. It's breaking that out. You know, some people with a lot of Taurus have very set ideas. I give you an example. I have my South Node in Libra, my second house of Taurus. I had to really convince myself that, first of all, that spiritual people get paid.
Yes.
That they get paid for the work that they do, you know, because there's this something that we should just be kind of giving away our services. You know, I don't know where I got that from, but it's just, no, you should just be doing, but that's not how it works on this planet. And if you're thinking about getting into a spiritual community and you're not charging for the services that you do, then that's showing to people that you're not serious. This is subconsciously about who you are and what you do. You have to stand in your power and believe it. If you don't believe it, nobody's going to believe it.
You got to step right into it. And you got to honor what you value. It's all about valuing yourself, values them, and what you offer, your time, everything that's involved, you know. And people got to remember that we have a life too. You know?
You do, and it's not, you know. And people think that, and I'm not saying that some people aren't, you know.
Do value.
Some people are born,
yeah,
as mediums, but again, it's really tapping into that, right? It takes work for mediums, for astrologers, for anybody in the spiritual community. So their time is worth something. Yeah. It's worth something. And I think that because for years, this whole industry has been demonized. Mm-hmm. And oh my gosh, they're woo-woo. They don't, you know, I'm a practical astrologer. I have spent the last 25 years in corporate America. I understand how the world works, how to make money. You know, my goal is not to really show others how to make money and how to come up with or how to find their purpose and passion. You know, so it's, I think we're getting there more so than we were, let's say 10, 15 years ago, which I'm very excited about. So this is a really good time for anybody interested. This is a really good time to study these modalities and to really find your purpose and passion, whatever that is.
Exactly. You know, I think that's wonderful. I was brought up in corporate world. I never thought I would be doing this. You know? And my life changed, and boy, and it's my passion path, and love all of it as this unfolded. So I get what you're saying, but I've always treated it has to be like a business, because that's your work, that's your livelihood, and it is a service and of your time and valuing what you offer. And I think that's important for anything you do, you know, even if it is spiritual, you know.
You have to work at it. It all takes work. We come on this planet because we know it's going to not be easy. You know, it's Disneyland for the soul. That's the only way that's probably the best way I describe it on planet Earth. It's Disneyland for the soul, because just when you have it figured out, there's something else that comes up.
Oh yeah. And we just want to say thank you. We're going to answer some questions. So
okay.
Chat a question.
Absolutely.
And we just want to acknowledge, we have a lot of people here. We have Festo, we have Kathy Flaska, Thorsten, we have Beth Perry, Bernice. I'm trying to get everybody down here. Trish, Stacy, Deborah. There's just so many people. And we got Renee, Tanya, Burley. Thank you for joining us. And we have Beth Perry and Rose Jeffrey. Woohoo! There's people from all over the world and throughout all the states. We're just so happy you joined us. And what we like to do, if you have a question, you can chat it too. But the question I have here, and my glasses have broke, so I'm going to read this, but I got to bring it in closer to me so that I can read it. And this is from Beth Perry from Waterford, Michigan. And which has the most effect on your personality, sun, rising signs, or where your moon is? She's got two questions, but that was her first one.
Okay. Yeah. So all three have an effect on your personality. The way it works is the sun is who you show to the world, your sun sign. That's how you operate out in the world. For an example, like you're an Aquarian, you like to do it your way. It's unique, it's different. That's what you're going to show to the world. Your moon sign is the internal you. The internal you. Your deep internal thoughts are your moon sign. Your ascendant is what you're ascending to. So that's the area that you're trying to ascend to.
Okay.
So each has its own place in somebody's chart. I would say it's ascendant on some levels because that's what you're ascending to. You know,
Okay.
for example, going back, and the easiest one I could use is me because I know my stuff so well, is so my sun sign's Aries, my moon sign's Cancer, and my ascendant's in Leo.
Yeah.
So Leo is where I connect to my heart and I'm going to lead something.
Okay.
So that's what I'm doing. I'm living in my Leo ascendant. I'm ascending to Leo. I'm operating on Aries. You know how I operate. I'm always trying to start new things and do new things. I have that
Yes.
compassion with Cancer, home and family. So they all kind of work the same, or in kind of a grouping to a certain extent, but that's how to think of them, if that makes sense.
Oh, that's cool. Beth, the second question is, what can we do to neutralize Mercury retrograde? That's a good one. I think a lot of people are waiting to hear that answer.
It's really about revisiting and reviewing something and giving yourself plenty of extra time to do things. For example, if you're going to take a trip or you're going to go on an appointment, build in some extra time because things can be out of whack, especially with travel, even with local travel. If you're
Right.
going to you have to get to an appointment to meet somebody or a doctor's appointment or something, build in some extra time to get there because the energy is chaotic and it feels like it's off. You know, right now, people, again, we're in Venus retrograde, so people can be thinking, is my money off? Is my relationship kind of off? So it's not a time to make sound, don't do anything that you might regret. Don't do a specific change until after the retrograde. Because sometimes, again, that's why I use that example of right now is not a time to get a new haircut or do a new look or even get a new tattoo. Don't do any of that right now. Kind of revisit it, study it, wait until the end of September.
Yeah. Good advice. Good advice. Oh my God. Yeah. We have another question from Kathy Thorsten from Cedar, Michigan. And her question to you is, can you explain what it means to be on the cusp between astrology signs? If on the cusp and ask what sign a person is, how do you respond?
So the sign is whatever the sign it is when they're born.
Oh.
Yeah, it's whatever that particular date they were born, that is their sign. However, if it's 3 days before or after, depending on, if it's like, we're going into a new sign or
Right.
if coming out of a sign, they can pick up the energy of both those signs,
Okay.
and feel like, I'm more of this sign versus that sign.
Okay.
So it could be a little bit of a compilation depending on what birth date there is. But the sign that they're born is the sign that they're born.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I mean, leap year is a little bit more complicated, because I know people that are born in leap year. That could be a little bit more complicated, but it just depends on their chart, because there's always astrology always modifies. It's nothing. I mean, we have the archetypes that are kind of set in stone. The archetypes meaning the planets mean this, the signs mean this, all of that. Now, okay. I'll just say, not to confuse your audience, I'm also a vibrational astrologer, which is evidence-based, research-based. It's a whole different way to look at the chart.
Oh, wow.
So, and we didn't really cover that too much because that would be another whole show. But that's how it works. I mean, the cusp is generally you can feel the energy of both signs, but wherever you're born is what your sign is.
It's what your sign is. Okay, this is good to know. And we have another question from Julie Moore Cypret from Florida. And her question is, could astrology help me receive divine inspired action to take towards my purpose?
Absolutely. With your nodes, your north nodes, your node placement in Chiron, 100%. Because again, that north node energy is your destiny. And it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel like, because you're so used to operating in your south node. So that north node it's uncomfortable. Like I said, I use the example of myself. I was always the supporting cast member. I didn't want to be the star. I was like, I can't do that. I can help you do that. But that wasn't what I was supposed to be. So I was operating in an area that, yes, it seemed normal to me, but it was unfulfilling.
Yeah.
So you're trying to get to that opposite, whatever it is. And the only way you're going to know that is to get a reading and again, I have I'm launching we just came up with the name of this, Celestial Executive Astrology for Women on the Rise. Ooh. So yeah, Celestial Executive Astrology for Women on the Rise. And it's a whole compilation. I do a 4-part video series.
Okay.
For how to read a basic chart, even if you don't want to be an astrologer at all, at least gives you an idea of how to read a chart. And you can use like astro.com is free and just kind of play and dabble with it. And then you can be part of my membership, my Facebook club, where you can, I'll answer questions, bring on different speakers each month. I mean, it's a whole series of how to really use astrology as a tool to get to your soul purpose.
Oh, that's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And how can people get a hold of you? We have it scrolling, but sometimes it's kind of hard for people to see.
So my website is mmastroVibes.com. And then my email is Melissa Marcum, MARCUM, at mmastroVibes.com.
Yeah.
And then I have a listing of all my readings. You can sign up to be part of, my program. There's a place where you can sign up on the website. And again, I'm launching this big Celestial Executive series that's going to come out within the next couple weeks, I would say. And I'm also doing a retreat in the Dominican Republic, November 8th through 11th, where I'm going to do a whole talk on an exercise on the lunar nodes. Okay. And I'm also going to be talking about what's going to happen for 2024. What could we expect for 2024? I feel like I feel like we're moving in the direction where it's still going to be difficult. I mean, it's just going to feel challenging for the next 4 or 5 years, and then it's going to seem a lot lighter. So it's just because, like I said, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. It's all changing. It's whatever is not working for the planet will go away, and we're moving into the fourth industrial revolution, which is this air energy, which is this AI in our daily life, a whole new way. I mean, look at the malls that are closing. We're purchasing everything through Amazon or Amazon-like entities, where people are not even, they're basically doing, it's like living in the Jetsons. I mean, it really is, right? And that's going to continue. So people that are like, oh, this AI thing, no, this AI thing is going to continue.
It's here.
But how do you work in this AI thing?
You can blend it. Yeah.
Exactly. I tell people, I have a couple of resident doctors that have had readings. I'm like, now that we're in this process world of medicine, westernized medicine is all about, process, right?
Yes.
Maybe you can incorporate being a healer in, formulating your own practice, getting what you need from the Western, but incorporating the Eastern into it. So it's not that they're not just, an entity anymore, that you could get to the soul of the person and help heal them that way too. So it's all going to be about that, with Saturn and right now in Pisces, it's all about how to make all of this so it's practical and fundamental, and not just, oh, you're one of these woo-woo people. I don't, because and I understand this. I still have people that they have to prove it to themselves. Anyway.
Well, we just want to say thank you, Melissa. We're so honored, and it's such a special treat to have you today. And absolutely. And for upcoming events or new guests coming, or if you want more information on Melissa, go to www.sherrylord.com. SHERRYLORD. She is there. And you can also review this interview there under her picture, which will be on there today sometime. And you can also watch it on the Facebook Live like we've been doing. And we have a YouTube playlist, so she's going to be added on that this week. So we just want to say thank you for everyone for joining us, because this was a wealth of information and an awakening on other levels. So thank you so much, Melissa. You've been amazing.
Thank you, Sherry. And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to listen and learn more about astrology.